Right, so this is the game we're going to make today. It's called Tower Crash, and what you have a stack of bricks over at this end. The catapult is shot, and you can see the direction it's going in with the orange line. The arrow is where you're aiming for, and the orange at this end here, can you see? The orange is what's going to be shot. So let's try, just shoot up there. Yes, and it makes a little pop sound as it hits. Okay, and then after 5 seconds the orange disappears. What you can do is actually roll some on the ground. Might be a bit more of a challenge, just try and hit some up there, and we might hit some up here. Ooh, just be careful because sometimes they roll underneath. Oh, and a little pea roller just along the ground there. There you go. And then it tells you the score. 182 I've scored there. So this is the game that we're going to make today. I hope you enjoy it. Good luck. First of all, we need to go to backdrops, and then right up here to backdrops as well. I'm going to convert to bitmap and choose the fill tool, that paint bucket, up to the colours, and I don't want a solid colour because I want the sky to fade from a darker blue up at the top here down to a very pale blue down at the bottom. So the one I want is this third one here, and the first colour is going to be the darker blue, so let's choose a good shade of blue. I don't want it so dark up at the top, round about there. And then the second one, I'll move that up a little bit, but move the saturation down. And you can check the colour just up here, and you need to check it actually because once you've fixed it in place on the stage you can't really change it. So let's get the colours suitable for what we want them to look like. The bottom one, I don't want it to be white, I still want it to be a pale blue, and this one here a darker blue, so that's looking pretty good, and we'll select that. Okay, that's fine. So there's my sky. What I need now at the bottom here is the ground. So a rectangle, filled rectangle, and I'm going to choose the soil colour first. So I'm going to choose an orangey colour, something like that, and if I move the brightness down, can you see it turns to a darker brown? That's fine, and I will make the the soil colour down at the bottom. It doesn't need to be too thick, something like that. Down at the bottom, that's pretty good. And now the grass layer on top. Now just be careful here because if we still have that selected and we go and change the colour to the green ready for the grass, it's going to change that already selected rectangle there. So let's just click to deselect. I'm still on the filled in rectangle, so now I can go and choose a green grassy sort of colour. That's a green. I'll make it a little bit darker so it's more grassy, something like that. Click, and then now I make the rectangle for the grass. Again, not too thick, something like that. And I don't want any sky in between, so let's just drag that down so they're both touching. About there. So that's it, we're done. I have the soil, the grass layer, and now the sky that fades from a darker blue down to a paler blue at the bottom. The next thing I want to do is to make the bricks that are going to form the tower. So we don't need Scratch the Cat, let's delete him and come down here to the paintbrush and let's paint the bricks. Now notice that I've got this green colour here, I haven't changed that, and that's the colour that's being used for the grass. I'm going to use that very same shade of green to make my bricks. The reason for doing that is that when I start to fire the ball, if it hits anything of a green colour, this shade of green, I can use the same code. I don't have to do different code because I'm using different coloured bricks. A bit of a cheat really. If you want to use different coloured bricks, that's absolutely fine, but it does mean that later on you're going to have to set up the code for what's going to happen with that. So convert to bitmap, rectangle, filled in, keep that same colour of green, and then I'm going to make a nice big brick. I'm going to put my cursor in the middle and just double check that I'm on the crosshairs. Actually I was over to the side a little bit there. just about there. Now don't worry about the size, we're going to fix that up when we do the code, but that's looking pretty good, a good big brick, because I can change the size in a few minutes. Alright, the next thing I need to do is to set up my variables. I'm going to be needing to have 8 variables for the code that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to set those all up at the same time. So head down to variables, make a variable. The first one I'm going to do is the vertical speed. So vSpeed is my first one. The next one is the vertical gap, so vGap. I'm going to do a horizontal speed, so h speed, and the horizontal gap, so h gap. Alright, so those are the first 4 variables. Another one I need is going to be the score. I also need one to show me how quickly the speed of the bricks drop. So I'll call that one the drop speed. Okay. Another one I need is how many bricks I have. So the brick count, how many bricks I have. And the last one I need, launches, how many launches I'm going to have. Okay, have I got 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. My variables are all set up there. Just look over here though onto this stage that we have, because we don't want all those variables showing. Can you see it's almost filling the screen? We have so many variables. This one here, the score, that's the one that we want to keep on the stage, but all these other variables, we are going to use them, but we don't want them to be displayed. So the way we can stop them showing on the screen is just to untick them. So the only one I want to be left showing is this one here called score. So I'll leave that one, but the other 2, just delete those. Okay, so we can still use them as variables, they're just not being displayed on the screen. And then this one that we are going to display, we can choose where that goes, and it can go anywhere on the screen. I might just leave it there for now. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is to make some functions. Now functions are really useful. A function is a set of commands, and they're created to do something special every time the function is run or called. And what's really useful about a function is it means that we don't have to keep recreating that code to do the same actions. So to make the functions that we want, come down here to my blocks. Now we haven't used these before. The first one we're going to do is for the bricks, so let's make sure the bricks are selected. We're on the bricks there, and we are going to make a block called create tower. So we're going to create a tower. Okay, now let me show you how this works. So this is our block that we're going to put into the code later on. It's a new block, so we have to define it. We have to say what that block is going to do. So when we use that block called create tower, this is what it's going to do. So first of all, we need to go down to variables, and we need to choose the one that says set the brick count, but we're going to leave it at 0. So the brick count will count up the bricks as they're made and help to position them. And then we need a control, and repeat 10 times because we're going to make the clones of that brick. So we need to say create a clone of myself, pop that one in there, and then when it creates the clone of himself, we're going to change the brick count by 1. So it's going to set the brick count at the beginning as 0, but once it's created a clone, it's going to change that to 1. And it's going to make 10 clones, so it's going to change that up by 1 each time. And then whenever we make the clones, the original clone needs to hide. So let's finish off with a hide there. So let's go back to my blocks. So this is the block that we're going to put inside the code later. We've made a new one, and then this is what's going to happen when we use that block. Okay, that's fine. Now for the other 2 blocks that we're going to make, we're going to have those for the missile that's going to be shooting. And I think I want my missile to come from the library. Now, the missile that's being shot, you can choose any of these items here. You could choose the ball, baseball, or a basketball. I've been having a look through here, and I'm going to choose a missile that's going to be an orange. So I'm coming down to O. There we go. There's my missile. So I'm going to shoot oranges at the tower. Okay, so let's go over. So I've chosen over here. There's my orange. I'm going to go over to my blocks, and I'm going to set up my new blocks and define what they are. So the first block I'm going to call move the orange, move orange. Okay, so there's my block I'm going to be using later. Now I need to define it and say what it's going to do. So first of all, I'm going to change the X by the horizontal speed, the H speed. So change the X by the H speed, and I'm going to change the Y, this one here. Any ideas? The V speed, the vertical speed. Yes, so if I change X by the horizontal speed and change Y by the vertical speed, the up and down, that's the coordinates sorted out. I'm going to also change the V speed, the vertical speed, by, and I'm going to try minus 0.2. That could be changed later. In fact, that's something that will affect something quite important later. You might want to have a look at that number when you're making yours. I'm also going to set the H speed, the horizontal speed, to, and I'm going to put an operator in there. I'm going to put the multiplication operator just in that space there. I'm going to put 0.99 multiplied by the H speed, the horizontal speed. Now what this does, it makes the horizontal speed get smaller, just very gradually. That's what that does. And then I'm going to put a condition in. If we're touching the colour, so we need a sensing, and if we're touching the colour green, and now this is where that colour green was so important, that we had the same exactly the same shade of green each time. So let's come over and choose. Now it shouldn't matter which one you choose because they're both exactly the same, but if we're touching the colour green variable, what we're going to do is set the vertical speed, so the V speed, to, and let's get an operator, the multiplication one. We're going to set that vertical speed to minus 0.8 times the vertical speed, and that'll make the ball bounce. So the ball will bounce, the ball will move slower, and it also goes in the opposite direction. So it'll hit the bricks and then it'll start to bounce back again slowly. That's what that one does. So that's sorted out. So let's go down to my blocks again. So we've made the block move the orange, and we've defined what that block is going to do. We've set it up. We also need to make another block, and this one is move the orange to start the game. So let's start to do that one. I'll just make a bit of room, just pop that out of the way. Now on this one, what we need to do is we want the orange to start somewhere in this corner. So let's go to motion, and then we're going to say go to X position, and you can choose where it starts. I'm going to have minus 210, and then the Y position, let's say minus 110, that's down here somewhere. I'm going to set the size of the orange, I'm going to make it smaller. So in the looks, set the size. You decide what size you want yours to be. I might make mine about half the size there, 50%. And then we're going to go down to variables and set both of the speeds. We're going to set the horizontal speed, the H speed, to 0, and we're also going to set the vertical speed, the V speed, to 0 as well. And then to finish that part off, we're going to broadcast a message. And the message we're going to broadcast is a new message, and we're going to say start. Okay, so there are our 2 blocks. Move orange, which is this one here, and our other block is called move orange to start. So they're both on the orange sprites that we have there. The other thing I'll do, I might just rename this that's called sprite 1 at the moment. I'll just call that brick. Okay, there it is changed. Alright, so what do we need to do next? Well, I'm going to go and choose the brick, and what I'm going to do is set up the code for the brick. I've already set up what the new block's going to be. I've already said create a clone of myself, but let's finish off this code here. First of all, an event when the green flag is clicked, I might pop that under there, when the green flag is clicked, and set the size of that brick. Now at the moment it is massive. I think I might want that to be much smaller. I might change it to 15%. No, let's make it 20%. I think I'm definitely going to need to change that in a few minutes, but let's see for now. Set the size to 20% and then show. And then down to my blocks, create the tower. Can you see what I've done? This is this definition here. So it's going to run through this code, and then when it hits the create tower block, it's going to do that as well. I also need to say when I start as a clone, that's down in here. When I start as a clone, I'm going to, so variables, I'm going to set the drop speed to 0. Okay, so when I first begin, I'm going to set the drop speed to 0, and then I'm going to go to a position. So in the X position, I think I want it to do different ones each time. So let's choose a random, but not totally random. I'm going to put some figures in there, and I'll say probably between 180 and 200. So a little bit random each time, but not too much. And then, let's pop that over there, in this Y position, I'm going to choose the plus operator, and in there I'm going to have, first of all, minus, let's say about 155, and then in the other one, I'm actually going to pop another operator in there, the multiplication one. And in the first section, I'm going to say the brick count will go in the first one, and then in the other one I'm going to say multiply that by, let's say 35. So what this is going to do, it's going to give the block a random position, a random X position, but the Y values will just go up with the brick count. Okay. And then let's have a repeat until, so over to control, repeat until down there, repeat until the brick count equals 0. So we need an operator for that, the equals operator down there. So repeat until the brick count, that's in variables, equals 0. So I'll pop 0 in there. Alright, now we need to say if the brick is touching the orange. So let's have an if then. There we go. If the brick is touching, so that's sensing, touching the orange. Okay. If the brick is touching the orange, then we want it to hide. There we go. And change the score, don't we? Because if we touch it with the orange, the score is going to change. So change the score by, change the score by, we'll change it by the launches there. Yep, and we're going to change the block count. Oops, change the brick count there by, we're going to drop that by -1. And actually what we could do, we could pop a little sound in there. In sounds, play, oops, not start the sound. Yeah, just start the sound, pop. And then finally, back to variables, set the horizontal speed, h speed, to, and we'll have this as with an operator, the multiplication one, set the horizontal speed to -0.8 multiplied by the horizontal speed. There we go. Alright, so what does that do? All of that, it hides the block, it increases the score with a bonus as well, it decreases the number of bricks that are left, plays a pop sound, and then this part here will bounce the ball. That's good. So that's if we're touching the orange. And then we can say if, so let's get an if then, another one, we'll put it inside that repeat block. If we are not touching the green, so not, that's going to be an operator. Let's find the one with not, there we go. If we are not touching the green, this is where it's so important that we chose that same shade of green for both, otherwise we would have been writing so much more code. If we're not touching the green, then change the drop speed. There we go, change the drop speed by, let's say -0.1, and change y by this one here, just in there, change the y by the drop speed. There you go, drop speed. And that should finish the game. So what we could do at the bottom is broadcast, just at the bottom there, broadcast a new message, game over. Broadcast that message, game over. Right, so let's just test this and see how it's going. Oh dear, okay, so we have a problem creating that tower. That tower's not creating itself. Let's have a look. Define create the tower. Set the brick count to 0. Yes, that's right. Repeat 10 times of 10 blocks. Create a clone of myself. Yes. And, oh, yes. Set, no, that should be change. Aha, this is what we've got wrong. So let's change that, not set the brick count. Change the brick count by 1. Okay, that should fix that little problem. Yes, we've got the tower. I think they're a bit small. I might just change the size of those. Do you remember how we changed the size of them? Over here, set size 2. I might just make them a little bit bigger. Let's try 25. How does that work? Okay, that's a good size. And they're dropping slightly randomly each time. That's good. The only thing is I have a big gap here. So that's on my y-axis. And let's just have a look what I've got for y-axis. I might just change this number here to, I've got -155 at the moment. Let's just try 160. Let's see what happens with that. Oh, that's done it. Yeah, so that was fine. So I know that my bricks were too small, so what I've done, I've changed the size of the bricks. That just affected the y-axis a little bit, so I just adjusted that. And this one over here, goodness me, I don't know, I just put the wrong block in. I'd put set the brick count instead of change. So that's fine. So depending on how big you made your bricks, you might have to change this figure here, the size, the percentage you want to reduce them, and if you do that you may need to adjust the y-axis just slightly. Just have a play around with those. Alright, the next thing we need to do is start to direct the orange ball for when we're shooting. So we need a new sprite for that. I'm going to choose one from the library. Just something to show the direction that it's going to shoot in, and I think I'll just choose the arrow. So let's choose the arrow sprite, and then let's say, oops, events. Yes, when green flag is clicked, what do we want to do? We want to draw a line to show where the orange is going to be catapulted to. So to draw this line, we need the pen tool. And if you notice, we don't have that anymore in Scratch 3. We used to have it as one of the different sets of blocks over here, but Scratch 3, it's no longer in our set. And what we need to do is come down to here, where there's extensions, and there you go. Choose the pen. Now, here it is in the folders of blocks that we have, and here are all the different options, lots of options to choose from. So first of all, what I'm going to do is set the pen colour, and the colour I think I'd like it to be, I'm going to use the dropper and choose the same colour orange as my projectile, as the missile that's going to be shot at the tower. So I'm going to have it as the same colour as the orange, and I'm going to choose the thickness of the pen. So set the pen size to, and I don't want it to be too thick. I might just have it as 5. So this number here is changing the thickness of the pen, and I can always change that later. And I do want it to show, so I want the pen line to show when I'm doing this. And then forever, what do I want it to do? Well, first of all, I want it to erase any previous lines, and then I want it to go to a position. So go to, and this is where it's a little bit tricky. What I want it to do is to sense where the ball is. So I'm going to choose 2 of those, and I'm going to say the position of the orange. So in this block here, it needs to be the X position, so that one's fine. But then for this one here, it needs to be the Y position. So let's change that one over to the Y position. There we go. That's looking good. Then I want it to go to the mouse pointer, so that's going to be a motion block. There we go, go to the mouse pointer, yes, and point towards the orange. So where we got, point towards the orange, and turn 180 degrees, just so it's pointing in the opposite direction. So if it turns 180, it's turning the opposite direction than when it started. And also when we click it, so when this sprite is clicked, here we go, have I got room up there? When this sprite is clicked, we want to broadcast, and it's going to be a new message that says shoot. Once it's done that, we're going to hide it down at the bottom there, hide, and then lift the pen up. Finish off by lifting up the pen. There we go. Alright, and one more. When I receive that message that we did before, when I receive the message that says start, there we are, we're going to show, and then finally put the pen down. Alright, so that's the arrow all fixed up. Is that working? Alright. Okay, well, we're not finished yet. We still have a little bit more to do. So we're almost finished. What we need to do next. Finally, we go on to the orange, and we need to say when the green flag is clicked in events, when the green flag is clicked, we've got to start off with the score being 0. So set the score to 0, and also set the launches to 0. Oh no, the launches, hang on, to 20. want to have 20 launches. Actually, you could change that number there. If you want to be a bit meaner, you could maybe only give them 10 launches. I'm very generous. I've given them 20 launches. And then let's go and choose one of those blocks that we made before. The one we want is this one here. Move the orange to the start position. All right. The next thing to do, we need to say the broadcast, we need a receive. So when I receive that message that said shoot, what's going to happen? Well, we're going to reset the timer down there in sensing, reset the timer, and then change the launches by -1. Because each time we shoot, we've only got 20. Well, I'm only giving 20 to start, but each time we shoot, we want to reduce that number by 1. Then we've got to set the horizontal gap to, and I'm going to pop an operator in there, the -1. So we're going to set the horizontal gap to the mouse X minus the X position, and that's in motions, X position. X, there we go, position. And we need to do a similar thing with the V gap as well. So set the V gap, the vertical gap, there we go, and then another operator, and the one I wanted was the minus, that one there. So set the vertical gap to, and this time it's going to be mouse Y. Where's it gone? There. Mouse Y, and you know what goes in there. If the mouse X was the X position, the mouse Y is going to be the Y position. So this one needs to be down the bottom, Y position. And then we need to set, so back to variables again, we need to set the H speed, the horizontal speed, and we need to set the vertical speed, V speed. Okay, those are both going to be popped onto there because we need 2 more operators, this time that division sign. So pop both of those in there ready. So set the horizontal speed to the horizontal gap, and the vertical speed, yes, you're thinking ahead, the vertical gap, and then divide both of them by, we can try 30 for now, and you might want to change those later. Those are the speeds that we're going to try out, but you can fiddle with those later on and change them to whatever you like. In fact, you can try different values and see how that affects the gameplay. And then finally, finishing up, we want to repeat until, down there. So this is all going to be repeat until 2 things. Either the timer is going to be less than 5, or we're touching the edge of the screen. So because there's going to be 2 things, we need an operator. First of all, I'm going to get the OR operator and drop that one in. And then in this first block here, I need the greater than symbol, this one here. So that just drops in that first block. And in the first one, I'm going to put the timer. So if the timer is greater than 5, or if we're touching the edge of the screen. So let's find the touching. If we're touching, just move that over, touching the edge. There we go. What's going to happen? We're going to go back to the block that we made and use the one that's called move the orange. And then to finish off, move the orange to the start position. Alright. Oh, I saw it bounce then. Alright, the final thing, we've just got a little bit of space here just for a final bit of code that says when I receive game over, here we go, what happens? When I receive game over, we are going to say, and I'm going to put an operator in there because I want it to do 2 things together. So I'm going to join together, and I want it to say you scored and a little colon, but in that one there I'm going to pop the variable score, this one here. So that'll change, so I don't need to worry about that. It's going to say you scored, and then it's going to have a look at what it did score and pop that value in there. How's it going now? Shall we test it? Okay, so let's hit that one. Ooh, it did bounce. It knocked a few there. Let's a bit higher. Oh, yes, and it dropped. Okay, a bit higher still. Oh dear. No, that didn't hit anything, did it? Let's shoot right up there. Haha! Oh, those are dropping. It's a bit glitchy. Why didn't it drop before? Yes! Oh, and that one dropped as well. Ah, a little bit glitchy. Let's try now. Oh, I might bounce on the ground. Haha! Yes! Am I going to get all of them? Look at my score there. 139. A roller. A P roller. Now, one more to get. I think I'd need a roller for this one. Don't want it to bounce over the top. Yes! 164. You scored 164. All right. All right. I hope you enjoy this game. Have a think about how you could improve it. One of the things that you could do, you could alter the amount of the vertical speed in that move ball function. Have a go at putting slightly bigger values. Let's go back to the ball. The V speed. Change the V speed. I've got minus 0.2. You could change that to minus 0.5. Maybe to 0. See what happens there. Some funny things. And then in the code that makes the ball fire, that's the last bit that we did. What you could do is try altering the numbers. I don't know, what could you change it to? Instead of 30, why not try 20 or 50 or 60? Have a go at playing around with these values that we've got here. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this game. If you have enjoyed it, please subscribe. Do leave a comment. I do love getting your comments and I always try and reply to them. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.